Hello and welcome back to the ME7 Podcast. Yep, we still haven't won. Believe it or not, we still haven't won. And yeah, you've come to a podcast who follows one of the worst teams in the Football League right now. Statistically and performance-wise, we are one of the worst teams in the Football League. Owen will be joining us at some point. I have got Harry with me. Harry went up to lovely Hartlepool on Saturday afternoon. He must have been mental. So we're going to be talking about that. We are also going to be talking about the question that was posed over Twitter over the weekend, which was stick or twist with Neil Harris. Do we stay or go with Neil Harris as Gillingham manager? Well, we're going to talk about it tonight. It'd be interesting to throw your comments in. Are you a stick or twist with Neil Harris? And we'll get the opinions of the boys as well. And then, of course, Sutton United come to Priestfield on Saturday afternoon in what is probably going to be expected as another Gills loss. Maybe a Gills win. You never know. Miracles can happen. So we'll have to wait and see. But we did take the trip up to the northeast. Is that where Hartlepool is? The northeast? Up that way, isn't it? Towards that way, I guess. And yeah, Harry, you were one of, I don't know how many people who went up there on Saturday. But you were one of a few that made the trip on Saturday afternoon. Harry, give us your review on it. How was it?
Well, firstly, mate, thanks for having me on again. I mean, like I said to you before, I think it really is the only way to sum it up. It's just the same old, really. We just didn't look like scoring for the entire 90 minutes. I mean, no shots on target. This says it all, really. I mean, it's not like I said, it's not like we're playing one of the better sides in the league either. We're playing one of the worst sides in the league. I know people said, new manager bounce for them and stuff like that, but it's still a confidence thing. I don't think they won in something like 22 games, and you think you've got to take the game to them, but we just absolutely didn't. And that's an understatement. I mean, like I said, we barely even really got in their box. I can remember. Apart from that, I mean, like I say, not a lot to say. I think, to be fair, I'll give them credit. The defence did pretty well. I mean, there's been a lot of stick, especially from McAdam this season. But I think generally they were quite solid. I think Hartlepool had a couple of chances. Morris made, I think, 2 or 3 decent saves. But apart from that, generally, I think give them a bit of credit where it's due, because they're not getting much this season. But this is one game I think you do think they were some of the better players on the pitch. And apart from that, like I say, just nothing in attack at all. Just same old.
Yeah. I mean, Harry, you mentioned to me just before coming on air that you went down for a drink at half time and you didn't come back for the best part of 15, 20 minutes because you kind of knew that nothing was going to happen. Yeah,
I mean, like I say, the first half, I mean, it was a very nothing first half. But I don't think either keeper made a save in the first half. And I went down at half time for a drink, and I didn't rush back up. Normally, like I said to you, I'm one of these people that think, I don't want to miss a goal. From all this way, I don't want to miss a goal. But I just couldn't see one coming, and I was right to stay down, really, wasn't I, in the end? So obviously, probably should have stayed down to the 90th minute, really. But
yeah, you wouldn't say anything.
No, exactly.
I mean, good evening, buddy. You did watch the game on iFollow, I believe, on Saturday. I'm sure it was £10 worth your spending. But yeah, just give us your assessment on what you watched.
We're not very good, are we? Well, it's just really frustrating. Defensively, we're better. I think the biggest improver from last week was definitely Morris. He was a lot more composed than he was in that Mansfield game. He did quite well. Will Wright did well as well. Good challenge right at the end to prevent last-ditch winner for them. I think defensively we were better. We didn't really, let's be honest, you're not going to get the biggest defensive challenge out of Hartlepool, with all due respect. I think the only team you get easy challenges when we play each other in training, I would imagine. But I think it's just a case of, other than in the first half, when I had that, I think his name's McDonald, isn't he? Did that jinking run past two players and Law had to head it off the line. That was a really good opening for them. But other than that and that challenge Will Wright had to make right at the end of the game, I don't think they really threatened us too much. I don't think they had much creativity. You could tell their confidence was low. Seemed like every corner they had in the second half, they over hit straight out of play, and maybe that's a confidence issue for them. But yeah, at the other end of the pitch, we just have absolutely nothing, do we? It is just frustrating. You know, we watch us go on a counter attack. We watch us try and bring the ball forward. You have no confidence that we're going to create anything from it. It just seems that a big dent in people's confidence that it's got on for so long as it has. You know, we get into good positions where, you know, Mandron had one in the second half, I think, where he could have taken a shot on, but maybe he spends too long thinking about it, goes for the extra touch, tries to bring someone else into play when, you know, a striker who's high in confidence and has got a few goals on his belt this season probably takes that first touch and looks to hit it straight away, but he didn't. I think it's just an example of many of where we're severely lacking going forward. I think, you know, it's 2 goals all season in the league. It is, quite frankly, an absolutely embarrassing statistic. It really is. I watched Harris's interview after the game, and I must say he's starting to sound a lot like a certain Mr. Evans did at this time last year, and we all know what happened there. But yeah, I think he said something really, really strange, that we dominated the first half, and on another day we could have been 2 or 3 up when we didn't have a shot on target in the game. So I'm not sure how you expect to do that if you can't do that. But yeah, it's just another glaring example of, you know, poor recruitment in the forward areas. A lack of confidence, a lack of cohesiveness, and just a side that look absolutely on the floor in terms of self-belief. And, you know, we've said every week, James, haven't we? We've made all these running jokes about us not scoring goals, and we all sort of like, we make jokes about it because we know realistically deep down it's incredibly, you know, frustrating, and it annoys all of us a lot. But we try and make a joke out of it to try and make ourselves feel better. It's becoming now, it's become a point where we can't even joke about it because it is just that big of an issue that we can't look past the humour. It's just a complete embarrassment. It really is.
Yeah, Harry, did it highlight on Saturday that it was two sides that are effectively going to be battling to stay in this league come May?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, there was little to no quality in the whole game. You know, it's hard to say with them really because it's their first game under a new manager. You know, you don't know how they're going to get on now. But like I said, I can't believe we didn't take the game to them. You know, they must have been shot on confidence. You know, they hadn't won in, I think I said 22 games or something like that. It was something like that back in March, I think, the last one. So it's like, you know, it's just, I just can't believe we just absolutely didn't take the game to them really. And yeah, which just shows about our confidence as much as theirs, that they were, you know, the better side. As I say, they might have had a new manager bounce possibly, but like Owen said, they really didn't make much themselves. So it's just it was almost like the game just sort of petered out in the end. Really, it was, if anything, they were sort of the side that were, when you look at it and think, well, you know, they don't know how to win a game, so why are we not trying to win the game? It really didn't make sense in my head. So I'm sure a lot of people think the same. But just.
Yeah, and Owen obviously mentioned about Harry. Owen said about Harris's comments after the game, which quite frankly were absolutely baffling. I didn't understand where he was coming from in terms of we controlled and dominated the first half and should have been 2 or 3 up when statistically it didn't add up because we'd not had the shots on target to echo his comments. In a way, is that coming from a man that he's trying anything to get confidence into his players, that he doesn't want to criticize them, or what do you think? Is it slight pressure? That I don't know. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so strange. I mean, to be honest, the only way I can see it is that he knows he's stuck with this group of players now to January, really, at least. So he can't show them any more confidence, or with God knows what will happen. Like, that's the only way I can sort of see it as a sort of positive. What he's saying is trying to sort of keep it a bit positive, but there is absolutely no positives, really. I mean, it's just, like I say, it pretty much gets worse every week. I mean, you know, as much as we've gone away from home and haven't lost, which is always a positive really in football. He just wasn't at all. I can't believe he said that, to be honest. It almost, wait, I know you're going to mention it later about people saying, should Harry stay or go? Things like that, which sort of turn the fan base against him, I think, as well. I mean, if he was honest and said, right, we've played absolutely, well, I know he won't say that bluntly, but if he said we was absolutely terrible today, you know, you sort of respect that more than him saying, right, we've dominated the first half, we should be winning. You know, I can remember Ben Reeves had a shot blocked from the edge of the box, and that's about as far as I can remember if he'd having a real shot. I mean, I don't know where he's got that from, to be honest. He must be watching a different game.
Yeah, Owen, obviously, we talk about the possibility of us going down this season, and quite a few of the comments that have been thrown around is that we probably won't go down because there's probably going to be two worse sides than us. At the moment, on what evidence is there that there is two worse sides than us in this division?
Well, Hartlepool didn't beat us. I suppose that's something. We beat Rochdale. They beat Colchester the other day, who are now, I think it's level points of us or just below us or something like that. So, you know, Rochdale, maybe that's a springboard beating someone around them to pick up their form. And obviously, they've got a new manager as well not too long ago. So, I can't say I've been keeping massively over their results. But it's hard, isn't it, to find any sort of justification for us surviving in comparison to other teams. I think there's probably about 5 or 6 who are in our sort of bracket at the minute. You know, Crawley are there as well, which surprised me considering they signed the top scorer in League 2 last year, but that just doesn't seem to have worked for them. I think we'll be in a real dogfight. You know, for me, it's all about trying to get to January now, just above the line, and then seeing if we can do anything in that month, whether we can bring in that elusive striker that we were looking for, or, you know, first thing I'd do in January is get a couple of loans gone, because there's no use in them. You know, Minoga can go. Who else have we got? I was going to say Jeffries can go as well, but I don't think he's on loan, is he?
No. I don't think he's on loan.
No, if he was, that would have been a good get out plan, because that's clearly not going to work, is it? I don't even know who else we have on that. I think Ashley Hammond is still actually technically on our books as a loan player.
Yeah,
I'm not pretty sure. I'm certain of that, actually. He's not back at Charlton. He is back at Charlton, but he's technically on loan at us still. Which, when we've got 2 goalkeepers, I find it ridiculous that we've wasted a loan spot on someone who's not here. If we can somehow get to January not in the bottom 2 and then try and look to bring players in to get us away from it, then that would be something at least. But this season's already a write-off either way. You know, I don't really want to entertain the thought of us going down to the National League, because there's another thing, as much as we joke about it, like, as Gillingham fans, to see us playing non-league football, it would be, I mean, you can't even put it to words, can you? You know, you think of all these National League sides of the past, current National League sides, I should say, who have been, you know, in the EFL not too long ago, like Chesterfield, who won the other day. I think they're top of the National League now, but they've been down there for a few years after getting relegated from League 2. Dagenham and Redbridge, remember, they were in League 2. Notts County, who are by far and away the biggest club in that division. You know, no matter how many years ago was it the Yeovil were in the Championship. You know, now they're scrapping out in the National League, and I can't really bear to think of the idea of us being down there, to be honest. So we need to fix it. We need to fix it quick. Whether that solution is getting rid of Harris, I don't think it is, because who else is there? But we'll come on to that a bit later on, I'm sure. At the minute, it's hard to find any real justification for us being one of those teams who stay in the division. The good thing about League 2 is it is only 2 who go down. You know, if it was another case of like last year where it's 4, we're probably not even thinking about, well, at least there's 2 teams worse than us because you need 4, not 2. But I think that's it. The only positive we've got at the minute is knowing that there's only 2 going, not 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in answer to it, I mean, I might have to start entertaining it, because I think it's a distinct possibility that we might end up in the National League come the summer. Harry, obviously you go both home and away. And am I correct in saying you've been to every game so far this season? Is that right? Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, since the beginning of last season, I've been to every game, unfortunately.
Yeah. Are we, to put it bluntly, are we in serious danger of going out the Football League this season?
I think, as I said to you before,
on the evidence that you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think, as Owen said, the only positive we've really got is that there's only 2 spots below us. I mean, that's the only positive I can think. I mean, as I said to you before we come live, if you don't score goals, you can't win matches. If you don't win matches, you're not going to stay in the division. It's quite simple, It's not. There's always a thing about, we might have not lost, but it's just you need to win football matches at the end of the day, and we're not doing that. So, that's. I think it's a real possibility.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously the question that come out over the weekend from a podcast that they do a bit of a Football League podcast. I think it's called the Football Social. It is. And they put a question out about Neil Harris and basically they asked the question, stick or twist. Would we want him to stay or would we want him to go? And I put out the podcast over the weekend to say I think we should stick with him on the sheer basis of we can't keep firing managers on the first sign of trouble. And who the hell are we going to turn to? Quite frankly, because I would love to see anyone come forward and suggest a realistic appointment. There's no point going to suggest a manager that's come out of work that's been working in the Championship for the past 5 years. Like I can't remember, but I'm waiting to see like Rob Edwards, who was just sat by Watford earlier today, pop up because like he's going to come to Gillingham. That's the sort of people that end up getting towards us, and it's just not realistic. And that was my main point, was that who the hell is going to see us as an attractive prospect and look at Gillingham and go, yeah, you know what, I fancy that, to be honest. It's not going to happen. So I would stick with him. Harry, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, exactly what you said. I mean, I think I tweeted out that I don't think Pep Guardiola could get a tune out of our lot. I mean, it's literally, I can't believe people want him to go just because of the fact that, like you said, who do we get in? Like, you would just go to another ex-player or club legend that will end up ruining their reputation with us. So that would be another story. But it just, I can't, like, I can understand it, to be fair, to a point where I think if it was any other sort of season, any other sort of manager, I think you'd have to say, right, would you be looking at the results, because they obviously are terrible. But I think in these circumstances, I think you're not going to get anyone better. I think it's more the players. I think it's the quality more than the manager. I think at the same time, people moan about not making substitutions. I mean, who do you bring on? Either a youngster or someone who's not. No one's going to change the game. So I mean, you can only blame the manager. You can only use the cards that you've got in front of him. And like I said, definitely stick for me until at least sort of maybe another 10 matches minimum, and then sort of see where we are, because I think it eventually does get to a point where you think, right, something has got to change, whether it's his fault or not. Maybe a change would be good, regardless whether it's up or down, if that makes sense. Just a sort of something fresh. But I think for now, I'll definitely stick.
Okay, Owen, thoughts?
Yeah, stick. I think it's proven the past year or so that if you don't put a little bit of investment into a squad, then you're forcing whoever's in charge to go after players who this British doesn't really want. I think a lot of Harris's signings this summer have been quite poor, but I also think they're probably options C and D to what he originally had planned in certain positions. We all know he wanted McAdam, we all know he wanted Pierre. Did he really want, the Lewis Walkers, Minogas of this world? No, I hardly doubt it. And I think it's, if there's any more proof you need than that, then everyone said the problem last year is Steve Evans. He's currently got a decent budget at Stevenage and they're third in the division. So it goes to the point of saying that maybe the manager isn't the problem and it's the person above who dictates what the manager can do in terms of a budget. And we all know that before. Something that's like makes me laugh is, I've seen people in the forums saying Lovell could get a better tune out of his players. But I've got to make sure I say this without winding myself up. There should be a banning order on Steve Lovell from Gillingham Football Club. I said this last year. No more, please. But some of the people I've seen say it as well. It's interesting. There are a lot of people who say Scally out all the time, and they're happy to have Steve Lovell back in. But it blows my mind, honestly, like how people can be so accepting of getting someone like Neil Harris or Steve Evans and letting them go and thinking, we'll bring in someone who's he's currently at Ramsgate, Steve Lovell, and someone was like, he's won 5 games in a row and they're scoring for fun. I was like, good for him, he can stay there then, can't he? But we were just so accepting of having these people come back just because they are Gillingham people and they have the passion or whatever. It's just, I find it honestly ridiculous. I really do. If we keep Neil Harris, we've got a better chance of staying in this division. If we get rid of Neil Harris and bring in someone like a Steve Lovell, we will not stay in this division. And I think when January comes around, if we are in a bit of a perilous position, we'll see how much the idea of being a non-league football club actually bothers Paul Scally, won't we? That's when we'll find out. If he's still here, he might have sold up by then.
Yeah, I think the fact is, what interests me is that Paul Fisher was asked about budget in his Q&A video, whatever he wants to call it. And he said that we've got a mid-table League 2 budget. And then he went on to say we've got a talented squad. Now, both those comments they angered me and worried me, because the fact of the matter is that we haven't got a mid-table League 2 budget on the evidence of that squad that's been put together. Because if we had a mid-table League 2 budget, I'm telling you now, that squad would be a hell of a lot better than Neil Harris has put together. Now, that poses then 2 questions: is that has the recruitment not been good enough, or is that just a blatant lie from the board at Gillingham Football Club? And I'm leaning towards the latter, because it always has been the latter when it comes down to the Gills. And what also worries me is that we've now had 2 managers in the space of 18 months that have got the best part of 4 to 5 promotions out of this league and the league above in the last 7-8 years. They're not crap football managers. They are managers that, when given a competitive budget and a budget that they can work with, they will make things happen. People have got to remember, Neil Harris nearly kept us in League One when we were 10 points adrift. He took it down to the last game. I think Neil Harris needs to be given some sort of respect for what he's done for this football club. And he could have easily jumped ship now, because this club is in, quite frankly, excuse my language for younger viewers, a shit show. And he has decided not to jump ship, not to walk away, and to stick it out when he knows that squad of players in front of him, half of them he doesn't want, he doesn't need, and he just has to put up. Sorry about that. Yeah, he just has to put up and shut up about anything that's kind of thrown at him. So, yeah, Harry, what do you think it is? Do you think it's poor recruitment from him and Nicky Shorey? Or do you think it's a lie that's come from the top of the board, that it's not a competitive budget, it's a budget that's down the bottom?
I think, to be fair, I think we probably, I wouldn't say we've got a mid-table budget, but I would like to think there were clubs in the league, especially if you come out of League One, that've got lower budgets than us. I mean, there's teams in the league, sort of like Stockport, big budgets, and I wasn't expecting us to be sort of up there. But at the same time, we're not even competing. That's the thing. It's like, like even Saturday, we're lucky not to lose. Like it's not like we've gone there and got a hard-earned point. We just sort of got away with one. Really, we just like I can't really put my finger on myself. To be fair, I mean the recruitment, as you say, it was poor, but you can only use what's in front of you. I mean, it's like Owen said with Lewis Walker. I mean, Harrison come out and said we've been chasing him for 4 weeks. I mean, I think the more true story of that would be we had him in our head for 4 weeks, thinking that he's our option D, and then we've had to go to him, and then he's had to come out and say something because no one else wanted him, sort of thing. It's like it's one of them where it just, like I say, I can't blame particularly Harris and Shorey for the recruitment when we all know. Would anyone else have got anyone better in really with our budget? I can't see it. I mean, a lot of National League clubs probably have better budgets than us. Probably at least half of them now. I mean, there's a lot of big clubs in that division now. So it sort of worries you. Even if we were to go down to National League, then would we be in the same position next season where we're in the sort of bottom half and you sort of, we're never going to get out of this cycle because we're not getting any money in the club. I mean, so much money in football these days. You can't run a club without putting money into it some way or another, sort of. And we obviously don't do that, so that we're never going to be successful in the near future while we keep doing that.
Yeah, and Owen, it comes back to your earlier point about I think you made it about Neil Harris saying one thing and he often started sounding like Steve Evans and in his interviews and the perfect thing to compare it to really is Paul Fisher saying that the budget's competitive. We're in the market for free agents, where then Harris is then coming out and saying it's a lower budget of League Two. We're not in the market for free agents. It's just all a little bit miscommunication, and it's just quite frankly a mess again, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think with Harris saying he's not in for free agents, I don't think that's anything that's you should read into. I think that's just a case of managers play down what they're actually doing because they don't want it known. But yeah, the budget is an interesting one. I think we have the money. I don't think it's going into the budget though, because first two questions I'd ask: where is the tribunal money for Tucker? And we had a bid there for McAdam. Where's that money gone?
Well, I can tell you that money gone. 2 weeks later, a court injunction come in and Scully had to pay for it.
Really? Did he get McAdam with that, or was it not included in the fee?
Oh, obviously not. But that's where the McAdam money went, because it all went quiet on that McAdam deal, didn't it?
Yeah, we should have just made a deal with the court so they can look up Scally. We take McAdam. But yeah, no, we don't have a mid-table League Two budget for me. I think we're lower mid-table if we're going to be at all that high. I think you can tell, like, as we were saying with Evans and Harris, these two as managers are not mugs. They will not go and every week. I have to say Lewis Walker as an example. I feel so bad for him, the poor kid. It's not his fault. But players, managers won't go and look for someone like him for 4 weeks. They'll have all of these top targets, and it's like Harry said. Lewis Walker would have been a D, like an option D at the highest. He's not someone that Neil Harris at the start of the summer when he come back to work for, right, let me get this random person from the Italian 4th division. The only reason he's chasing him for 4 weeks is if he read the paperwork wrong and thought it was his brother. But I just don't see what if I don't think Harris is making these signs in sense of they were his number one choices, because that would go down as a poor recruitment. Then I think it's a case of we don't have the money, so he's basically been left with the choice of, well, I'm going to have a really, really slim squad, or I'm going to have to take players who I don't really want, but we need the numbers, and maybe I can try and make them into half decent players. And it's not happened so far. Yeah, there's a lot of players we signed who you can say are poor recruitment. We got that of Evans as well, but as I said the other day to someone, like, as bad as some of the signings that Evans made, I don't think any of them were as bad as this current crop that we've got. The odd few, maybe Lee Hodson, Lucy. So, Matt Willock's a free agent, which is interesting.
Right.
But you look at what he's done at Stevenage with, I said it to you, James, last time I see you, that team he's got there isn't a top 3 League Two side, I don't think, anyway. Got a few good quality League One players in there, Alex Gilbey specifically, but that squad isn't really one you'd look at man for man and think they're a top top 3 League 2 team, but he's gone in there with a decent budget. He's picked up the right players and he's made them into a force in that division. And it goes to show that the manager isn't always the problem. And I don't think it is in this case. I don't think it was last year either. Of course, last year, some of the results, everyone's got things wrong, just like Harris is getting things wrong this time, like the team he put out against Mansfield, for example. You can't put that on Scally. You can say the personnel's not good enough because of Scally, but the actual formation and the players he went with in certain situations was poor from him. And again, I think we're going to be going into January with a similar, if not lower budget, which again worries me because we're going to be picking up players that either no one else wants or players that we don't really want, but we feel like we have to take. And if we do go down, then as Harry said, there's teams down there with a lot bigger budgets than what we'll have now, and that's in the National League. And there are teams in the National League that will beat us quite easily. Because I watch a lot of National League on BT Sport. Although it's non-league, there are some decent sides. You'll know this, James, even from watching National League South. But just because they're a few divisions below us, there are some decent sides even at that level, never mind the National League. So I'd imagine it'd be another situation where most Gills fans this year thought, well, we've gone down a league, but we'll win more games, we'll back up. Like, we'd struggle getting out of National League. Like, you can ask all of these players of teams who have gone down from the Football League, and they've probably gone there thinking, we'll go straight back up. Like, it is a hard slog to get out of that league, and that worries me a lot should we end up there.
Yeah, and the way the National League is going now with the amount of money that's being thrown about from obviously Dorking and Wrexham and I think Oldham obviously have now got new owners, and yeah, there's players and teams that are being paid well, and have got some really, really good players in there. So I would go probably as far as saying is that National League at the moment is probably more competitive and probably does some weeks see better football being played at that level than we do our level, which probably isn't hard. I'm going to put a question to the both of you now, because we obviously need to see the other side of the argument. Where I know we've all gone with stick with Harry tonight, but do we see an argument? Do we see an argument for the people that have said twist with Harris to go now? Harry, start with you.
Yeah, I think I mentioned the sort of for argument in the when I was saying about why I was sticking. I think I can see what, like, any normal circumstances, you think, you're 10 games in, he got, well, I say he got us relegated last season. Obviously, he got relegated with us, if that makes sense. Obviously, like you said, he was the reason we nearly stayed up more than anything. But what I mean is, obviously, he didn't manage to keep us up. We've come into this season, we're 10 games in, and obviously we're near the bottom of the league, and we've only won one game. It's like, and it's even the way we're playing as well. It doesn't look like we're scoring. So it's just any sort of normal circumstances. I can understand people's views, but I just think people have to take it as like a one-off now. I think it's got so bad now where you have to just look at it and think, does anyone come in and improve us? No. Like I say, maybe 10 games, a few more heads might start turning, and I think that would be fair enough. If you're sort of 20 games in and we're sort of still sort of around this sort of bottom 4 or 5 teams, I think then you have to say, right. But I think at the moment, I think it's not the manager. It really isn't. I mean, as I said, Pep Guardiola, you could give him our squad, and I don't think he'd do much better. Honestly, there's just very, very little quality in the side. And I think I can understand why people want him out, because it's results business, and it's a difficult business for managers, because like the Watford manager say, he's 10 games in and he's gone. And I think they're a point out of the playoffs, and I can understand they want to go back up because they're ambitious, but I think that's just ridiculous. Like, so it's a difficult business being a manager these days, but like I say, I can't. We know, he'll be an ex-player, or we all know it will, or the cheap option really. And I don't really see the need for it at the moment.
Owen, can you see a for argument for Harris to walk out the door?
Well, yeah, I can, because obviously fans go off what they're watching, and what they're watching right now is pretty shit. I think it's just, as I said, I don't think the manager's the problem. I think we all know what the problem is, and I don't think it matters who's in charge. But I can obviously see fans, obviously they pay the money, they go to watch their team play, and they're watching those sort of performances. Naturally, it's going to firstly come on to the manager's back, and they're going to question some things. And he's not without blame, Harris. There are some things, like I mentioned the Mansfield game specifically, where he's got the lineup wrong, he's got the tactics wrong, and it's not worked. And you can call him out for that. He did say to judge him after 10 days. 10 days, that'd be a bit harsh, wouldn't it? 10 games. And then he changed it to 12 during his interview last week, which I thought was a bit silly because, it doesn't make you look that great if you then go and perform worse in those extra games. But I think, like Harry said, if it gets to 20... sorry, spag bowl. If it gets to 20 games and we're still where we are with no real sight, say we've only scored about... how many games we played now? That was our 11th, wasn't it, on Saturday or something like that? Say we've... 10th, yeah. Say we get to 20 and we've only scored, 6, 7 league goals, and even that sounds quite optimistic at the minute. Then when we're still vanquishing down the bottom, you've then really got to think about it and think, well, maybe it's just a case of it's not gonna work, and we should change it around. But I think the more likely scenario is that he just gets fed up. I think he might take, if he doesn't get sacked, I think he'll probably go to January, see what he's got available. And then if he sees it being another window like it was in the summer, where he's not going to get any proper backing and not enough substantial help to improve our current situation, he might think, well, there's not much more I can do here, so I'm just going to take my leave and leave you to it. And you wouldn't really blame him for that. We said the same with Evans last year when we had the crisis of not having a team because we didn't have the budget for the players and we were left with youth players, and we all thought, well, you wouldn't blame Evans if he left. It's the same situation now with Harris, where you've got two managers who are top of their game in this sort of level, and unfortunately, under different stewardship, perhaps we could have been looking at a really successful Gillingham team these last few years with managers like this. But as it is, and with the lack of backing, these managers' stocks are lowering by every game. Well, not Evans, he's going back up now, isn't it? But Harris is lowering by every game, not because of what he is as a manager, but because he's not been given the tools to execute his job to the best of his ability. So I can see why people are saying it, because they vote with what they see firsthand. But I mean, there needs to be a sense of perspective and look back to how close we actually got to staying in this division when it was nearly on impossible last year, and to give him that bit of time to try and turn things around, because I don't think we're going to get in anyone better. I think it will be a job for the mate. I was saying that before the Mansfield game, I'm pretty certain, I can't say for sure because obviously I didn't talk to him or anything, but I'm pretty sure I did see Kenny Jackett in around the ground just before I went in. Again, I won't say that's 100% confirmed because I didn't go and speak to him, but it did look a lot like him. And obviously he's out of the job at the minute as well. So
Interesting. Okay. We move on to... We haven't got a Papa John's trophy tomorrow, have we? Or have we? No.
It wouldn't matter if we did.
It wouldn't matter if we did. You are right. So, okay, let's move on to the more important stuff. Sutton at home, Priestfield Saturday. Obviously, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, we are stuck with these current crop of players until January. So we just basically have to go with we've got. And this Saturday afternoon, we face, Sutton. Harry, what have we got to try and, apart from the obvious, kicking the ball in the back of the net, what have we possibly got to try and do to win a football match on Saturday afternoon?
I think the only hope I've got at the moment, genuinely, is that we might get a lucky win at some point, and then hopefully we sort of get a bit of confidence from that, and then sort of kick on. That's sort of the only hope I'm holding, because, as I say, I think we've got probably some of the lowest quality in the league, especially attacking wise. As I say, it's all well and good keeping a clean sheet, but, you need to win the game sometimes. And I think the thing that frustrated me most is that it seems to be inconsistent, and it sounds ridiculous when we've only won one game. But what I mean by that is, Swindon was a relatively good performance considering the circumstances.
Yeah.
When up at Grimsby, we played pretty well. We probably could have, we had 2 disallowed as well there. That's really one of the best attacking performances. And then all of a sudden, we've gone back and then lost to Mansfield and barely showed up. And then Saturday was even worse again. It's like, I just can't. We can't seem to get a bit of a run going. and the players just have no confidence. I mean, like I say, I think the only way I can see us winning at the moment is maybe sort of a set piece goal. Hopefully they'll get a red card in the first minute or something. We might have half a chance, or something like that. I think we need a lucky win, and then hopefully that'll give us a bit of confidence. But I really can't see it coming at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Owen, what surprises me? What the hell was Jordan Green done to Neil Harris? Because he's been pretty much non-existent in the past few weeks, hasn't he?
Yeah, so I was looking at Sutton's last few games in the league. They've won 2 and lost 2 of their last 4 League 2 games. Interestingly, their game on Saturday, which they lost, their striker, I've never heard of him, but he was a starting striker and he got sent off. So I suppose that's somewhat helpful. Yeah, Green's a weird one. He started really well, didn't he? That's the live wire, and it's interesting when you consider Green. You think he'd be a good player to have an impact sub, but on Saturday and then Mansfield, I can't remember him even touching the ball. He just seemed not get into the game at all. I suppose it depends what he wants to play, really, because if he's going with 5 at the back, you can't really have a formation with 2 midfielders and then 2 wingers supporting Mandron because you're way too open in the middle. And if it is if it is O'Keefe and Williams, they've not got the pace to really make that a substantial formation to go with. Yeah, I'd like to see him come back in for this game just because I don't really see the back 5 doing that much for us, really. I mean, we played it on Saturday and we got a clean sheet against a terrible team. We played it against Mansfield and got cut open quite regularly. I think we started with 4 against Grimsby and we seemingly did all right. So I'd go back with that. But yeah, I think Green's worth bringing back in now because he is someone who perhaps can make something happen out of nowhere. Where he's been on the bench, he's not been able to affect the game when he's been coming on. So starting from the off and see what we can do. In terms of the game itself, are we going to score? Probably not. I suppose them having a striker sent off again. I've not actually heard of him before, but he started for them. So I suppose in that sense he must be a must be one of their better choices, I guess. But he's been suspended now, so he won't be playing against us. Yeah, they've got a couple of players I've heard of before. Harry Buteman, midfielder, formerly of Peterborough. Pierre, who's been on the bench for them, obviously. But yeah, it's one of them games where perhaps they've not, from what I saw, they haven't been that good on the road. They seem to be more of one of those teams to pick up more home points. And that's how they get. I think they're probably going to be a mid-range team this season, maybe lower bottom half. But it's an opportunity for us to go back on home soil, obviously the fortress as it's known, and just try and make something happen. Just go for it. And if we are going to go for it, you can't play a midfield of Reeves. That's sort of the issue we have. If we want to go out and start attacking straight away and put a team under pressure, you can't have a midfield of Reeves, Lee and Williams because none of them can run. And then you get absolutely killed on the counter-attack. And that's the issue we have. And, it means we have to play a bit more methodical and patient. And sometimes that's just not going to work. But just to round myself off for this episode, I'm going to go for another bold 0-0.
Bold 0-0. Harry, what are you going for?
Funny enough, I was thinking the same. I'm going to be optimistic this week. I'm going to go 1-0.
1-0, Jesus Christ, that is
optimistic. I think we're going to get a lucky one at some point. I think, whether it's a shot from 40 yards which gets 7 deflections and goes in, I think eventually we will get something like that,
Funny, 10 years ago, we won the League 2 title. 10 years later, we're saying a 1-1 draw at home to Sutton's an optimistic prediction.
Yeah, right.
Harry, just before we finish, sorry. Just because you went to the game, I wanted to ask you about something I saw on the forum. When the players come over at the end, if you were still there at that point, did you see what happened with O'Keefe? Apparently, he was the only one who come over, and O'Keefe was standing there, and there was people shouting abuse and stuff, and he was talking to him.
Yeah, funny enough, I was saying to you before we went live, weren't we, James? I said that really annoyed me that he was, from what I could see, he was the only one that come over. I think some people were back saying a few others come over, but they didn't come over. You know what I mean? I don't think they stepped foot in our sort of half. They might have clapped us, but they didn't come anywhere near us. Whereas O'Keefe actually come up, and I shook his hand myself. He come up to us and he said thanks and that, but no one else did, and that really, really annoyed me. I mean, especially like Max Amar. He's played hundreds of appearances. I know he gets quite a lot of stick these days, but he's one of the more senior players, and he's people like that are just even Williams. You know, he's a senior player. You just think, you know, we've come all this way in absolute dire situations. Like, at least give us a round of applause. Like, I couldn't believe it myself. To be fair, I did think it was a bit disrespectful personally.
There you go. And I think at the moment that probably sums up where exactly our squad of players are. Lack of quality, lack of fight, lack of passion, and quite frankly, don't actually care. So we'll have to wait and see on Saturday afternoon, as I'm sure like all three of us are going to be there, and what actually gets served up. Thank you for watching. You've been watching the ME7 podcast. Good night.